It's good.
It's on dark, right?
Want me to go under at 50 and then I can get more of the drum set. If I go 50, I'll be able to get the flare and
We're making sausage.
Joel, good choice on the shirt.
A little better?
I like it, yeah.
Scene 1, take 4.
Slay!
So what you've been listening to are the actual sounds from a music video set. The beating of padded drums, the movie of heavy gear, loud and echoed playback, and of course, laughter. When I teamed up with my business partner Ian McFarlane years ago, it all started because of music videos. The two of us got together and hunkered down here in Boston to create a very distinct style. We both looked up to directors like David Fincher and Mark Romanek, artists that launched their careers in music videos and made a really good living doing so. We figured that if we too worked hard enough, we could follow in their footsteps. As the years progressed, we started to get noticed by some really big acts and started working for some of the largest record labels. But the business was nothing like what we thought it was. Budgets seemed to hit a ceiling that was getting lower and lower each year, and music videos seemed to get digested a lot faster than they would when they were on MTV. We started to learn the reality behind what it's like to be a modern music video director. We started to learn about all the insider stuff that I wish we knew when we got started. That could have saved us a lot of grief. Now, before this starts to sound too depressing, I want to say that I've had some of my best on-set experiences doing music videos. Everyone has helped me develop my directing craft and visual style. Once we smartened up to how the music business works, we actually started to have a lot more fun. Today's guest is one of my favorite collaborators in the music video world. Killswitch Engage frontman, fellow foodie, and beer lover, Jesse Leach. If you go to McFarlaneandPecci.com and check out our music videos, you'll see that we've done a ton of work with Killswitch Engage. So much so that we actually feel like we're a part of their family. Now, all this was made possible because Ian and I changed the way we approach music videos. So if you're hoping to get into the film industry through a music video career, this is an episode for you. If you're looking to start a company and make a living on music videos, this is an episode for you. Hell, if you're a Killswitch Engage fan and you want to just know the real story behind some of those videos, well, strap in and enjoy this episode of In Love with the Process. So this morning we're hanging out with my good buddy Jesse Leach.
Hey, what's going on?
What's happening, man? I'm so happy that you were able to get on the line and talk about some nerdy shit with us today.
Dude, I'm honored. Pleasure is mine.
Sweet. And we're also here with Dave, who's hanging out with us today.
How's it going, guys?
Good, man. Good. All right. So let's just get right into it, Jesse. Where you been? Like, how's life? Where you been? You been touring? What's going on?
It's a mixture of touring. I just moved to Brooklyn not too long ago, so it's a balance between touring and trying to just do the sort of the home life thing, moving into a new place and settling down. It's been good.
Nice. Where have you guys been touring these days?
Just got back from Australia, New Zealand. Prior to that, we were in Europe for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then prior to that was full U.S. tour. So just keeping busy and getting ready to go out with Anthrax in about a week or so for about 6 weeks here in the States again.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think you're coming to Boston I think you're coming out here in like May or something, right?
I think it's the actual final show of that tour will be in Boston.
Oh, we'll have to hang out, dude.
Party.
That's cool, man. I have never been to Australia. It's like one of the few places I haven't been. How is it over there? Pretty
incredible. I mean, it depends where you go, you know. Sydney, which is usually the place you land, it's kind of like, you know, if you've traveled at all, it doesn't really stand out. But once you get into the other cities like Melbourne and Perth, you definitely feel like you're in another world. And the wildlife there is different. It's a pretty amazing place.
That's awesome, man. And I want to get into a bit of like how you tour and like all that. But just to sort of catch you up on what this podcast has become, we're really sort of getting into the process that artists take to be inspired. And I'm sort of trying to give an inside look into how portions of the business work for directors and for filmmakers. And I think one thing I really want to chat with you about is music videos. Because a lot of directors start their career or attempt to start their career by doing music video work.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it now with Ian for, Jesus, like we've been doing it for like 12 years or something like that. And
Yeah, you got a hell of a resume going on there, that's for sure.
oh, thanks, man. It was interesting because the business turned out to be nothing like what I thought it was, which I think it'd be really cool to sort of talk about all that stuff. And I know Dave will have a couple questions, being new to the business.
Of course I do.
Of course you do. Well, let's just start, man. Like, for you, dude, like how important do you think music videos are for musicians these days? Are they as important as they used to be back in the MTV glory days, do you think?
I don't know if you can really compare. I mean, I think back then videos were everything. And now it's something I think bands should definitely have. I'm not sure it holds the exact same weight, but it's always good. I mean, whether musicians like it or not, visual is a pretty damn important thing when it comes to a band. Whether it's your quirkiness or you got a group of attractive guys or girls, all that stuff matters, the style. When someone sees the way you look, I think it helps them relate to your music better. So it's still very important, but I mean, back in the 80s, people used to worship music videos. It's unfortunately taken for granted. The amount of time and energy and effort put into these things, I think with people with the YouTube generation, it just has become a little less important, but still something crucial to a band that I think every band should have videos.
Mm. And then for you, like how does, well, let me ask you on a couple different levels. Like when an album drops, there's always the notion that you have to have a music video and you have to have these music videos sort of drop before the album goes out for publicity, for promotion. So when that starts, how does the music video process start for you? Do you come up with ideas, or is it the guys from the management and the label just sort of showing up going, guys, we got to do a music video. What the fuck are we going to do? You know?
Yeah. Back in the early days, it was definitely more of a label approaching us and giving us a stack of treatments of people who wanted to work with us. And, I can speak for sure that there's been some videos in the past where we've been kind of like, that really wasn't great, but we kind of felt like we had to do it. And I think at a certain point we took the reins and just decided that we wanted to do something creative. I think with Killswitch, when we first started working with you, to me it was very eye-opening because you guys really care about what you do and you didn't want to do something generic. So at that point, I think is when the band sort of realized, hey, this is something we got to pay attention to, and how you present yourself is important. So for me, it's always been that way. But when I rejoined the band, I was kind of like the new old guy. I didn't quite have my say yet. But that being said, I think the band really did see the effects of a really powerful video. For example, Always, the one you guys did, I still think that stands the test of time as one of the most powerful videos that we've been a part of. And we weren't even in it, which is kind of cool.
we still get most of our compliments and most of our questions and comments, and actually the most emotionally accepted video has been Always for anything that we've done in our career. And I want to get to that, but let's go back to the origins. So back in the day, I think a lot of directors don't realize this, that bands will get stacks of treatments from directors, which are usually, I think they come to you guys from the label, correct? Like the label gives you that stuff?
Yeah, between label and management. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then what happens is, from what I understand, is that management and label form relationships with either music video reps, or they form relationships with these production companies that rep music video directors. And so from our standpoint, it's really difficult. When we started in this business, Ian and I were doing music videos because of Ian's connections in the music world, because of the band he played in, and then he knew a lot of really great musicians. And so we were able to sort of skip past that formality of having to go out and get repped and do spec stuff. And so we started to do stuff for a lot of Ian's friends, and then we slowly worked our way up to doing stuff for Meshuggah. And I think Meshuggah was our tipping point when we did stuff with the video for Bleed for them.
Oh, yeah.
And then that one sort of tipped us to the point where suddenly we were getting calls from like Ozzy Osbourne's management, and we're getting calls from all these folks that wanted to rep us. And suddenly we had this whole new thing where it was like representation. And being an artist, being just a music video director who works here with Ian and we're sort of locked in our own little closet making stuff, suddenly the world seemed to open to us. We had the potential of a rep in Los Angeles that was suddenly going to take our work and oh fuck yeah, you know what I mean? And now we're going to have that career of like Mark Romanek and Spike Jones and all these other dudes where you think you got that lift off. And it was sort of disappointing to realize that essentially these reps would go out with like a giant fishing net and catch as many directors as they possibly can get their hands on. And then whenever a job would roll through, they would say, hey, guess what? How would you guys like to work with, Killswitch Engage? And we're like, fuck yeah, like let's work with those guys. And they go, well, write a treatment. And in our minds, as being dumb and young as we were, we're like, wow, these guys are really interested in our work. They've seen our stuff. They've seen everything we've done. Let's put together a really great treatment. So you work really hard on it. And then the rep just takes that and puts it in a fucking pile. And then how do you guys get those treatments?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it right there. It goes into a pile. And, depending on the energy of the band, and you're talking about most of the artists that you're working with are touring bands. So we're on tour. We're not of them relaxing at home when this happens. We're in the chaos of a tour. So when you see a stack of things that's like quote unquote required reading, as some people view it, it doesn't always get the full attention it deserves. Me, I'm kind of a nerd and I really enjoy, the whole process. So I always read very thoroughly through them. But for a lot of times, you're right. These guys are pitching, and working fairly hard on something that may just be glanced at briefly, and it's not presented in such a way of, oh, this is who these guys are. This is what they're all about. All that information, it may or may not be there, but it's a short attention span basically of exhausted musicians. So it's a kind of a shit process. And that's why for us, it was like, once we started working with you guys, that kind of changed. But, that's how the majority of music videos are made. Unless you're a massive rock star that can handpick things and you care enough, a lot of the younger bands, that's kind of how it used to work for sure.
So here's a question for you. So like when you work with Mike and you guys decide to do a video, how much, what's the collaboration process there? Like how much do you guys go back and forth about what you guys want to see in the video versus ideas that Mike has?
Yeah, I think the way that's worked, and we've been very fortunate with Mike and Ian and the way that they work together, where I may even just write a paragraph or two of what I'm thinking of, and then we'll get on a conference call, and all the rest of the dots and blanks and T's that need to be crossed and I's that need to be dotted were done by Mike and Ian pretty quickly too. And if we didn't come to a full conclusion, they would say, all right, let's sit with this idea. We'll mill it over and we'll get back to you. And usually we're talking a couple of days. I mean, Ian and Mike are maniacs. So that's a blessing for us. Because for me, it was fairly easy. I was like, oh, I kind of see this. I would even pitch them just, color ideas or like something random that, oh, I was thinking, a road trip or this or that or anything simple like that. And just being who they are, they put all the pieces together. And when a band has their say, when somebody gets it, the director gets it, that's when you have those videos like I would say always for Killswitch. I think that's probably one of the best ones that I've ever been a part of in my career. And I still get feedback about that. I still get messages about that. And I think it's a perfect example of, when an artist is able to communicate properly with people who understand the idea. And I think you guys destroyed that video. It was so awesome. It's probably my favorite video I've ever done.
Do you remember the creative process on that? Do you remember how we did all that stuff?
From what I remember telling you about the song and what the song meant to me. And I said words like sunset and, big open spaces. I was pretty general with it and kind of talked about the meaning of the song. And from my memory, you guys just ran with it and killed it.
There's two sides from our angle, and I'll give the romantic side first. So the romantic side was we had that conversation with you, and the thing that I found really interesting was that you were talking about the love that family members had for each other. that most of the time, if you were going to get random treatments for a video like that, it would have been of like a dude longing for his girlfriend, or would have been another one of those military videos where he's staring at a picture of his wife.
It's typical, yeah.
Very typical. And so you were very anti that, and you were very much into the love that family members have for each other, which I found to be really cool. And then to break from the romantic side for a minute, originally we were pitched on doing a video for you guys from the label, I think, that said that you guys were going on tour in Europe, and they wanted us to go on tour with you and to do a video on the road, basically. And from Ian and my perspective, we're like, fuck yeah, let's go to Europe. This is gonna be great, you know? And so we signed on to do that video going, it's gonna be awesome. We get to hang out with the guys, we get to tour.
I remember that now that you're saying it. Yes, I do remember this.
Yeah, yeah. And then Justin broke his foot, right? Isn't that what happened?
His collarbone, yep.
That's right. Yeah, it was his collarbone. So the drummer breaks his collarbone, and so you guys had to tour with a sit-in drummer, or like a replacement drummer for that.
Yeah, the drummer that used to be in As I Lay Dying, and now is in that band Woven War. Jordan, great guy.
Yeah, and we know Jordan. He's awesome. So like, so you guys had to tour that. So then right off the bat, it's like, well, you guys can't go do a video with the band now because
the drummer's not there.
The drummer's not there, right? And so immediately we get that phone call, and both Ian and I are like, fuck this job. Like, it was like so depressing. It was so completely depressing. And the guy from the label was like, well, what do you guys want to do? And we're just like, let's get on the phone with Jesse. Let's just talk with Jesse and let's try to come up with this great idea. So then when you started to talk about sunsets and you started to talk about that stuff, I had remembered years prior that I had done this trip down the coast of California and how beautiful the coast was. And we had our hearts set so much on traveling that I was just like, fuck it, let's go to California. So it was kind of that start where Ian and I looked at each other and went, yeah, we're going to go to California. Let's go to California. And then as we processed your thoughts, to go back to the romance of it all, a good friend of ours who was a sound engineer here in Boston. He did movie sound and location audio. Bob. He ended up coming down with cancer, and he had to move to California because of the weather and because of what he needed. And so it was a good opportunity for us to hang out with a friend of ours who was basically dealing with chemo. And we ended up calling him on the phone because he needed stuff to do. Like, he wanted to live his life still. And we said, hey, will you go location scout? Will you help us out with all these, with all this business for the music videos, like that behind the scene paperwork kind of shit? And he was like more than happy. And so it was this, both Ian and I were like, oh, he's dealing with cancer, and that's a big thing. And what if it's a family member being diagnosed with cancer and having to tell a brother? And then instead of just sort of sobbing over it, what if they go on a road trip together? And then that's how that idea sort of came about, was between all those different things, Jesse.
It's such a good story, man. And like you guys learning how to work the angles, and then all that stuff happening made that video what it is. So as frustrating as it was, you guys didn't go on the road with us. The end result is an incredible video. And, you know, I commend you guys for that, because I remember the first time watching it, the first time showing my dad it, actually, I think is a better story. And all through my life, my dad's been pretty stern and, you know, kind of a disciplinarian. And I remember showing him that video, being in the room with my parents and looking back and seeing my dad completely speechless with tears running down his eyes. Wow. And I thought to myself, yeah, we did really good with this one.
Wow, man. And that's another great example in our business, and I'm sure in your business too, of collaboration. And whenever I talk about that video, it's never the music video I did. It's never the music video that Ian and I directed. It was definitely a collaboration between us and you. And then when we went out there, we decided that if we're going to do this road trip, let's do this road trip with people that we love. And so we sort of we weighted our casting selections to you guys because we were like, we want to go with this guy and this guy, or they're perfect for it. And they're friends of ours. They were dudes that we really wanted to go on this adventure with anyways. And one of them, Dave, was your brother, Nick, who was in it. And because of those guys and because of our friendship.
By the way, hell of a job. Killed it.
He did. He totally did. And you know, we ended up going on this really amazing adventure. And another thing that this podcast really is about is the process. And what always signifies for me is one of the first projects that I did in my career that the actual process of doing it and making it was actually more rewarding and more important to my life than the final product was.
That's incredible. That's so awesome, though. It's almost like you could have done a documentary on the making of that film, and it would have been just as good, if not better. You know, seeing you guys travel together. I just love that picture in my mind of you guys standing on the cliffs and filming, and I'm sure just telling jokes and having a good laugh or whatever the case may be. That's so beautiful, being able to create something where the people who are creating it that are behind the scenes are having a life-changing or a really great experience.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. And I don't know if I ever told you any of those stories, Jesse, but it's not as romantic as you think. Like some of it was staying in a hotel room that had AK-47 spackle up the wall.
I do remember you telling me these things, yes.
Or Jarvis, our cameraman, finding like crack over the sink in the place that we filmed. But, you know, we're a bunch of degenerates, so that stuff is a lot of fun to us. Okay, cool. Well, let's move on. I think that's really good stuff. And let's just wrap up the music video thing. So back on the music video production and how important we still think it is for bands. Why do you think that the videos for music videos are plummeting at this point? Or the budgets, I'm sorry. Why do you think the budgets for music videos are plummeting at this point?
Yeah, budgets definitely, and it's super frustrating because it affects the vision, it affects the whole process of it. But I think it's just a matter of like people getting their hands on equipment. You know, with the whole everyone's got a laptop, everyone can do a video on their own. I think labels now are almost expecting bands to do work with people who expect less. You know, and a lot of times you'll get people who don't have as much experience, but they're affordable. And I think that's happening to a lot more videos, unless the band demands to spend more money, which is a really fine line because record labels are just tough when it comes to money. Everything is about promoting the band, and video should be just as important. I think seeing the visual, whether if the band's in the video or not, but the style of a video is so important. But I think it's just the way of the world with technology on the rise, with people having access to more and more stuff. I think the corporate mentality, especially of the bigger labels, is the bottom line, which is money, not spending too much money to promote a record that they probably won't sell as much as they used to. It used to always be connected to record sales. Like a video would mean that you're going to buy more records. And nowadays a video means that you're just selling a band's live show. You're selling the experience of a band. So it's definitely changed a lot.
Which is interesting because, I mean, I can see both sides of that argument. And then I think some of the biggest videos that are out there right now are actually financed by the artists themselves and less the label, right? Like if you're talking like Lady Gaga and shit like that, I mean, she's a giant corporation at that point. Like, isn't she the one sort of taking the helm and paying for the video budgets at that point? Or do you think?
Yeah, but I think that's it. You just nailed it. If a band cares enough to pool their own money, you know, if they have it, that's kind of the way to do it. You know, cut out the budget idea and not worry about crunching budgets all the time, which totally hinders the art. So I think if an artist cares enough, if they have the resources, definitely the way to go is to just put your own money into it. And, you know, for me, it's, you know, being one of 5 people in a band, it's frustrating because the way that I see it, especially coming from a very visual family, growing up on movie sets, to me, that's super important, how you present yourself as an artist. And videos give you that unique opportunity to get in people's living rooms where they may not have seen your live show. They may not even really know who you are, but they might see that one video while they're sitting at home and become completely a fan of the band because of that one thing.
So for you personally, you know, having your style in mind and the messages that you want to convey, how much do you like to get involved with the collaboration process with whoever you're, you know, whether it's Mike and Ian or whoever else? How much do you get involved with kind of brainstorming for that video?
I love to throw out ideas. I love the whole creative process of it. And I'd have to say the only time in my career I've been able to really get one-on-one with a director has been Mike and Ian. So I'm kind of spoiled in that regard. But for me, it's just as exciting. I'll get up in the middle of the night with an idea and scratch it down on a piece of paper, and I'm all about that stuff. But I think it's a matter of knowing how to play to your strengths and your weaknesses. You know, I think for me, I've definitely pitched an idea where I was like, that's, you know, Mike even had to like, I'll be honest with you, man, that's been done. It's kind of like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but that's kind of cheesy. And having the humility and the foresight to go, yeah, well, take the reins. What do you think? What do you think? And let's switch it up. But for me, it's fun. I totally, completely enjoy that process. And I know not every band member does, and not every band does, because sometimes for them it's, you know, awkward. Like I know my guys in Killswitch don't really like to be in videos. They'd much rather not be in videos. And to me, it doesn't matter. I think whatever works for the song, I'll do it. I'll be in the video. I'll ham it up on camera if I have to. I love that stuff. I love movies. I'm a visual guy for sure.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it is for a band to do a music video. I mean, if you're doing a performance piece, you're talking about, you know, performing that track like 25, 35, 50 times over the course of like a 12-hour day. And especially for like the drummer, that's fucking exhausting. Like, I think the last time we did a performance piece, Justin was sweating it. Like it was just, we just beating him up because you.
Yeah, he was sweating like a half hour into that video.
Yeah. I mean, and for us, like we try to make when we do performance pieces, and we do a lot of performance pieces now because we feel like unless there's the money for a good narrative, then why bother? And I think the best special effect is the band.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's what the fans want to see. Ultimately.
I mean, you could look at the difference between the two videos you did for us that were performance was just, no, you did three actually, but Strength of the Mind and 8 by Design on our last record. Two totally, completely different videos and both really great sort of performance videos. And I think that's a great example of you guys being able to like do two completely different things on one record for one band.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, we get a kick out of it. And a lot of it comes from Ian's strength as an editor is that he is a musician. So like he really understands pacing. He really understands what he's hearing. He understands what he wants to see when he's cutting. And he's amazing with that. And then I think my strength comes from the fact that I'm not. And so when we do music videos, we kind of split roles as directors. Ian usually takes on a lot of the post-end and the performance aspect of how the band's going to act. And he also does a real good job of connecting with the musicians because he lives that life. He knows that life. And then I come at it from sort of a photography, sort of artist, lofty, you know, messing with the crew most of the time. And the two of us together become this, you know, double-headed snake that really pulls together for performance stuff. I think that's why we do such a good job of them. And we like to do them so much. Lately we've been doing a lot of that stuff for Bose, believe it or not. And we're doing like their in studio sessions, recordings, which is a challenge, Jesse, because those guys, they bring in musicians and they pay them a fee to own the licensing for that track to play on their systems in like Best Buy or wherever the hell they sell their stuff. But the musicians come in and they record it live in that space, and then we only have 4 takes. So I'm shooting that with like 7, sometimes 8 cameras, and every time we do a new take, every camera shifts to a new angle so we have as much coverage as possible, which is fucking insane. It's an insane way to shoot this. Yeah.
I want to go back to what you just said about you and Ian, which I think is important, and knowing who you're working with and sort of knowing your strengths. I think you nailed it, obviously, because you guys know each other so well. people always ask me about working with you guys, and that's the one thing. It's Ian, sort of yelling and getting in our faces in a very friendly, energetic way of like, bro, think about this. This is what's happened. What's going through your mind? How are you going to respond to that? Like he'll get me really hype. Now, I'll do a bunch of takes, and then you're sort of observing the whole thing from behind the lens, and you guys will talk. You'll show him a few things. Then you'll very calmly, very Buddha-esque like come up to me and be like, so this is what we're thinking. We like what you're doing right there, but come back with me to the camera. I'm going to show you something. So the way you guys would push and pull, you're giving the artist the full picture so they get what you're seeing. And like you are asking for us to do something, and it makes sense to us why you're asking us. So that made the whole process of doing those videos fun and then very insightful, like getting why there's certain energies that need to go up or come down for the camera. I think the way you guys spell it out is why your videos get so good, because you get the performances that you need and it makes sense to the artist. And I think that's just brilliant.
Well, thanks, man. And this show is not about, us, patting each other on the back, but I think that if you're a younger,
sorry, I couldn't help it.
I think if you're a younger director, these things are really important. And I think that even from the photographer aspect, because I've done that for a while, a lot of photographers get so focused on technical, and a lot of young directors get so focused on that technical thing, like this is how it's supposed to be shot, and this is the kind of camera I'm supposed to be using, and this is the angle I want to do, and this is how, and they forget that they're shooting people. And they forget that you actually have to stimulate a good performance. And early in my career, I forgot those things. And luckily I had Ian kicking around, because he really would focus on that, being a guy that was hyper aware of what he looked like on stage, hyper aware of what a fan will pick up on. And these are things that as a filmmaker and photographer, I didn't pick up on. And so I think when you're doing, especially performance stuff, you got to remember that ultimately you're shooting people. It isn't just shooting product. And you have to figure out how to motivate these guys to do their best, and do their best like fucking 40 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, it's super cool, man. Well, let's switch gears a bit, man. And I want to talk about your life as basically you're an independent artist. I mean, the fact that you are in a band, you're still an independent artist. And how, as an independent artist, Jesse, how do you stay motivated, man? Like, what's your day-to-day motivation like?
Day to day, it depends. Lately, I have to admit, I've been a bit exhausted from touring. So I'll go through bouts where not a ton of creativity comes out of me, but I think it's the matter of just keeping yourself disciplined to write, as a lyricist, to write every day, even if it's not, sitting down for writing for anything specifically, just exercising the muscle, getting yourself used to certain times of day your brain is ready to work. I try to do this on tour as well. Getting up in the morning, having a cup of coffee, and my brain is ready to work no matter what I'm doing. So I think for me, that's pretty important. And then just being aware, when I go out by myself, which I do a lot, I spend a good amount of time by myself because my wife works a lot, and observing people and allowing myself when that inspiration strikes, even if it's something super simple, a phrase or something, I stop what I'm doing and I capture it. I write it down. I'll speak into my phone. I'll have my notepad with me, and just being aware of inspiration and capturing it when you can, because sometimes it can be elusive. Sometimes it'll go for weeks without me getting something where I'm proud of it. I look at my work, I'm go, ooh, this is going to be a good song, or this is a good lyric. So I think it's just constantly trying to capture, when you're moved and when you're inspired. And I think that's been my big challenge in life, is finding the discipline to sort of be aware of that.
We talked a bit about your escapes. I think the last time we hung out, I find that really interesting because, like we were saying before, there is this whole notion that a lot of musicians are partying all the time, and either that or sleeping off hangovers. But you try to find a way to sort of escape everything and go out on these little adventures, right?
I have to, yeah. I think just for my mental sanity, but my creative process won't work well if I'm drinking all the time and being hungover all the time. In fact, I don't know how anyone can do that. I'm pretty baffled. But yeah, for me, it's a balance between getting away in nature when things are completely quiet and I'm able to sort of hear that inner voice within me. And then on the flip side, here in New York City, riding the subway, going out into the parks, like interacting with people, observing people is equally as important to my writing. And I think that's why I write the lyrics that I write. They're pretty deep stuff. It's, when you read what I write, it's not your surface everyday sort of like rock and roll song. There's some depth there. And I think that's important for me as a writer, to capture the deeper things. And you can't really live that party lifestyle and be a sort of deep, thought-provoking artist. I mean, everybody's a bit different, but I know that I can't be that way. Because for me, the most important thing is my music. My most important thing is the message I'm trying to pass along with my music. And sometimes that does require for me to be secluded and sort of live that hermit, almost monastic life for a while when I'm not touring. So I do a lot of escaping up to the mountains or to the beach during the winter, basically anywhere where I can get away from human voices.
So I got a really generic question, but something I'm always curious about. For you personally, do you prefer to, as someone who writes lyrics, write lyrics alone or with instrumental? Like, what comes first for you?
I think with the way that Killswitch operates, because it's such a well-oiled machine, these guys will send me demos of music, music that's been composed and written without me being in the room, or sometimes without anyone else being in the room. Individuals will come up with demos, then submit the demos to the band, and all 5 of us will listen to them. And the way that I usually write for Killswitch specifically is I'll listen to a song and jot down the way that the chords make me feel, whether it's a sad sounding song or a very energetic or triumphant sounding song, and sort of do bullet points to get my brain going on what I think the song should be about. And then I'll listen to the track a bunch of times, and then I'll go separately without listening to the music and write lyrics, take those lyrics, bring it back to the music, and see how they could fit in. So it's kind of a balance between writing to the music or being inspired by the music and then having to disconnect. Because I think creativity can be thwarted if you're writing to specific sonic sounds. Your brain gets caught in patterns that doesn't allow for real poetry to happen. So I need to do both. I need to have the poetry stand on its own, and then that poetry can become lyrics when I pull it apart and place it within the music.
That's awesome, man. I never thought about all that stuff. Like, which is cool, because let's go down even further down that road. When you picked singing as your outlet, because you're an artist like I am, and we have this need to tell stories, and we have this need to share, and my world or my output for my art is completely different than yours, from the fact that most people ingest my stuff on their own or without me. So I'm usually not there. There may be like a rare occasion where I have a screening where I get to be a part of that, but you on a nightly basis get to see the emotional reaction to the stuff that you're writing and you're putting out. Was that something that you thought about when you chose your avenue, or is that just a happy sort of accident that happened with it?
I think when I initially wanted to be a singer, or let's be honest, when I first started, a yeller, a screamer, for me, it was more about the message. I felt an urgency at a young age. I was pretty well educated and very sort of turned on to information. My father being a highly educated man. He's now a professor and was a minister for many years with like 2 master's degree and a PhD. So it was always knowledge, books, being aware of the media, being aware of the world around you. And at a young age, it all kind of struck me that something's wrong here. Something's fucked up. There's a lot of terrible things going on in the world. And for me, I just needed a soapbox to like say, hey, wake up, people. Like, got to start treating each other better. From a very young age, I felt that in my heart. And I think that's the initial thing that drove me to want to be a vocalist and wanted to do music that was loud and got people's attention, because I felt an urgency. So I think as far as the interaction with an audience, that was not a part of my mind when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. But as soon as I did see the reaction to an audience, I did get in a band and people started to get to know what I was saying lyrically, then it sort of clicked, and that became my drug almost, where initially it was about the message and the words. And then when I realized I could get this fix, this buzz, it just became the perfect storm of, the reason I still do this is because I feel a purpose behind it. And whether that's just, it's not just with the message, it's with the meeting of the fans, the seeing fans singing along and getting super emotional or even crying when they see us play. It's, you can't replace that with anything. There's nothing in the world like that interaction between audience and performer. And I don't know that I could do what I do without that. I do love to create, but there's just something about that instant gratification of an audience that has become a very addictive drug to me.
Which is also interesting when you think about the addictive qualities of that. Touring itself, I think we might have talked a little bit about this, like touring and the absence of touring must really kind of screw with you, as a person.
Yeah, totally. It's like, even if you don't have a mental illness, you're going to experience ups and downs if you're a touring musician. And unfortunately, I do suffer from anxiety and depression, which a lot of creative people do. Mm-hmm. So for me, initially, I've toured on and off for about 22 years, but serious touring, serious full-on touring, without a lot of breaks, has only been for the past 5, almost 6 years with Killswitch. And I didn't realize how much of a struggle that would be. You get on the road, you start getting that buzz from the high and the adrenaline, and your body actually seeks it out. So, it becomes something your entire being looks forward to, the performance. And, coming off stage and being on the tour bus and trying to go to sleep is almost impossible. So that leads to drinking a little bit to calm your nerves. And, it's just this whirlwind of energy when you're on tour. Then when you get home and all of that is gone, it's depressing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have the language for it, but it would spiral me down into a pretty dark place where I'd be happy to be home and see my wife and family and do fun things. But a couple days into that, you're missing your buzz. And my body would even get freaked out. Like, I'd be on the couch here at home having dinner with my wife, watching a movie. And, when 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock rolls around, when my body's used to being on stage, I'm ready to go crazy. And I'm just sitting there gnawing at the bit. Like, what is wrong with me? I feel like throwing a chair against the wall. Like, I'm going crazy. And it took me a while to realize, I'm so used to this lifestyle that when I get home, I crash. And then you got to get ready to do it again in a few weeks. It's mentally and physically and spiritually taxing. But I think once you sort of get to learn to live with that lifestyle, it becomes such a part of who we are.
Yeah. That stuff is so interesting to me. And it's something that, as we work with musicians, and we've spent years doing so, and from an outsider's perspective, I'm always really curious about that life, like what that life really is. And the idea that you spend, 22 hours or 21 hours a day just sitting around waiting for like that 2-hour push, that is really intense. And then the rest of the time you guys are just sort of waiting and sort of riding on a bus and waiting in the back room somewhere. And that in itself, I mean, for me to do that on a vacation, like even if I went on a trip and I'm like, okay, so I get to go on a trip to, Rome, and really all you guys are doing is just showing up to Rome And then if you do what you do, which is break away and you go off on those adventures, but I've been with bands that you don't even get time to do that. I mean, what's the difference between Rome and New Jersey other than the fact that the languages are different, but you're still in some sort of dark, dank, like performance space. I feel like the reality of being a musician is really interesting to me. And Ian's been dealing with this a lot lately with his new doc on Agnostic Front. The Godfathers of Hardcore, and the aging that happens, and sort of the idea that those guys are touring with music that they wrote when they were like as teenagers, and now they're in their almost 60s or pushing that high point, and they're still sort of touring and communicating that same message, and doesn't mean the same thing to them at this point. So it's fascinating. I think that's a whole podcast within itself, is to sort of talk about, you know, what the actual lifestyle of being a musician is. And I think I was just ranting there, Jesse. But
No, but I'm right there with you. I think artists in general, you know, the process of creating a masterpiece with a painting, or the process of a movie where it's hurry up and wait for months and then you finally get it done. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I'm sure after, you know, you make a movie and it's all said and done, you almost, well, I mean, I'm sure with you, you're like, next, but see, there's a certain amount of like, you know, I don't want to say, it's kind of like depressing, where you're like, shit, I put so much time and effort into that, and now what? And I think with performance and tours, it's the same thing, but it's definitely like, you know, a shot of espresso as opposed to just a regular cup of coffee, where you get an intense amount of things at such a short amount of time. And then it's a matter of like having your brain bounce back and adjust. And I think for me, especially like, you know, I've got songs that I've written when I was 22 that we perform now. And we just did a tour in Australia, for example, that was the 15-year anniversary of one of our records.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and people are asking, so what's it like? What's it like? It's really weird to stand on stage and perform something that you wrote when you were 21, 22 years old. And I have a completely different point of view and a different state of mind because of that. And I think all that being said, everything I just said, it's all about your mind. It's all about understanding the way that art works, understanding the way you're communicating to people, and then adapting to a particular lifestyle. That it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to be an artist living off your art, period.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. On every level, like whether you're a musician or whether you're a filmmaker or whether you're a photographer, as soon as you make that decision to take that leap into the unknown financially, into the unknown, socially, you know, it's definitely a lifestyle decision. And I think that it's, for me, it's a very rewarding one, because I feel like I live like a very rich and exciting life on a day-to-day basis. And I can't go back to doing mechanic work or anything like that. I'd probably put a bullet in my face if I had to go back and do that stuff. So
I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, man, because you were a bartender for years, right?
Yeah, I bartended. I did, you know, you name it, I did it, man. Stock work, carpentry, you know, just odd jobs, anything to get my hand on. But yeah, my latest foray prior to getting back in touring was being behind a bar, because I love restaurants, I love kitchens, I love bars, I love that whole atmosphere. And people in the restaurant industry are pretty similar to musicians as well. So I did find a bit of a comfort zone there, but I could never go back, you know, doing the same thing in the same particular building day after day, when my job now is to travel the world. I think that's a huge perk. And you're right, I live an exciting life too, and I wouldn't change a damn thing. If I'm home too long, I gnaw at the bit. I want to get out and travel. I love it, you know, but it definitely took some adjusting for sure to get to the point where now I love this life, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, man. And it's not easy. And those months where you're like, oh shit, I don't have rent. You know what I mean? Like when the money thing sort of breathes down your neck. When I first started out, I would really get fucking stressed out about that, and it would really kill, my creative vibe, and then you'd have to go to work on stuff that you didn't like. How long did it take you to finally get to the point where you were able to make some loot off of you, or a living, like a real living off your art?
Yeah, that. I lost a lot of possessions. I've had to work really terrible jobs. I'd say it was a good 16, 17 years before I saw, a decent amount of money that was going to cover me and make me feel confident I could live off it. And prior to that, I'd come home from tours and scramble to get work. So yeah, it was, I'd say 16, 17 years at least of paying dues, before I saw a decent paycheck.
And then do you think, were those 16 years or 17 years miserable for you, or were they some of your best years? Like, what were those years to you?
I would say, if you love what you do, it shouldn't be miserable. To me, it was all great fun. The only setback would be not being able to make a living and having to struggle to make ends meet. But it's all in your state of mind. When you're an artist and you live for your art, you are out of society's norms. So all the things that people you're surrounded by are taking pride in, whether that's their white picket fence or their steady relationship or their career as someone who puts a suit on every day and makes a chunk of money. I never really wanted any of those things. All I ever really wanted was to be a performer. So even when it did get dark, even when it was hard, the bottom line was I was still fighting for my dream. I was still fighting to live through my passion. So, I wouldn't change a damn thing. And, the good far outweighs the bad. When I look back on it, my memories focus more on my achievements than my failures. And I think it's that state of mind that you have to have as an artist to know that you're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to play gigs, for me in front of like 15, 20 people after driving 8 hours. I've done that so many times, sleeping on people's floors, hearing a prostitute getting beat by a pimp in the next hotel room. I mean, all these potentially terrible things that would scar somebody and potentially deter them from, attaining their goals. That's the kind of stuff you have to get through to get to where you're going to be, where you're going to make a decent living off of it.
Well, dude, I think that is the perfect place to end our conversation, man. I really appreciate you talking with us today, Jesse.
Nice. Hell yeah, man. That was fun. It's good to hear your voice, buddy.
Yeah, man, I miss you, dude. And
miss you too, man.
I think, we got to work on something again, and we'll talk about that when I stop recording. But
sure.
But thanks so much for being here, man. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you today, Dave, for asking some good questions.
Yeah, Jesse, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, man. Much respect.
Today's episode is brought to you by my good buddies at Puget Systems. It seems like everyone these days are making that jump from Mac to PC, but they're just a bit worried about how to actually do it. Now, we just got back from a trip to NAB talking about my switch from Mac to PC and how simple it was, and how much happier I've been since. So the common responses that I was getting from most people were, do I have to build it myself? Or why should I hire a company to build it when I can actually build it myself? Well, the answer is simple. Start by asking yourself, do you want to be tech support for all your editors? Do you want to be constantly distracted from your creativity every time an update doesn't work? When something goes wrong, can you drop everything and start that frantic Google searching for answers? I didn't want to do that. And thankfully for me, the guys at Puget offer lifetime support. That means if you have a problem, you can call them on the phone. They'll pull up your information on the system that they built for you and walk you through it. They've also packaged that computer in a box that you save so that if you can't figure it out, you can literally ship it back to them and they'll fix it for you. So when I bought my system, I plugged it in and it was working immediately. I didn't have to install anything. I didn't have to go through the process of troubleshooting. It just worked. I can't say enough good things about these guys. I'm proud to be sponsored by them. And listen, I don't make a commission on sales. Like, I love them because I use their systems. So if you're looking to make that switch, go to PugetSystems.com and you'll be able to get your answers. This episode is also sponsored by McFarlane and Pecci. If you want to see all these music videos that we talked about on this episode, or maybe you want to check out some of our behind the scenes stuff so you can actually see us fucking off, then go over to McFarlaneandPecci.com. There's a ton of content there. You'll have hours of viewing enjoyment, and you can also check out some of the new stuff that we're working on. If you haven't done it yet, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, In Love with the Process. There you'll find some really cool vlogs, video blogs, kinda, that Dave and I have been putting together. We just put up one called The Power of Color that gives an inside look at how I prep colors for my photography. We also show you how to shoot movie titles in camera, and then we're gonna have boatloads of content coming from our trip at NAB. Really too much stuff to cram into this plug, so go to MikePecci.com to see it all, or go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. That's even better, because the more subscribers we have, the better the show's doing. So subscribe, show us that you like it, leave us some comments. Lastly, the amazing Code Electro has, I think, officially become our music supplier for this podcast. So all those really cool 80s themes that you're hearing in the background, that's Code Electro. You can buy his stuff on iTunes. He's got like 2 or 3 albums that are just really cool 80s sounding retro wave. It basically sounds like a John Carpenter movie, so go pick it up. Lastly, I'm going to say this for both Dave and I. Thanks for listening, guys. We've had a great response so far, and we have a lot of really cool stuff coming in the future.